So now let's start with the layers. So layers are simply the categories in which you can put your objects. For example, here we have this drawing with simple line, polyline, text, dimensioning, hatches, and many other things. Now let's say that we want to put different type of objects in different categories. Then for that condition, layers can be used. So using layers, you can put all of the dimensions on a separate layer. Similarly, you can put all of the text, geometries, and hatches on different layers. So that will help you in managing the drawing more efficiently. So right now we have all of our drawings on a single layer, which is layer 0, and that can be seen here. So we have this layer 0, and which is available in the drop down. Now click on this drop down and you'll see that we have this single layer which is 0, and also this def point layer which is automatically created whenever a dimension is added. So we'll learn about this def point layer later on. Now in order to add any layer, you need to go to the layer properties manager. So click on this layer properties manager and this palette will appear. Now expand this palette just like any other palette, and you can change its size. Here you'll see lots of different options which are related to this layer properties manager. If these options are not clearly visible, simply right click on any one of them and select maximize all columns. So that will make all of these options visible. So right now we are not interested in these options, rather we are interested in adding more layers. So currently we have this 0 layer, and you can see this checkbox along the 0 layer that indicates that this layer is active, and all of the drawings which are made currently in this drawing area will be put on this 0 layer. Now we also have a new layer which is def point, and this is automatically added. In order to add a new layer, you need to click on this new layer icon. Now click on it and now give this layer a name. So by default it will be named as layer 1, layer 2, and so on. So I'll name it as dimensions. So I'll type dim for dimensions and click anywhere in this palette, and now click on this icon once again, and this time I'll add hatch as layer name. Click again and now click on it once again and add a new layer, text, and click anywhere else, and that's sufficient for now. But I'll create one more layer. So let's click on this again and I'll leave its name as layer 1. Now in this way we can add as many layers as we want in this list. There is no limit to that, and if you want to delete any of these layers, you can simply select that and click on this delete layer, and that layer will be deleted. There are certain restrictions and you cannot delete some of the layers, and to know that I'll select this layer 0 and I'll click on this delete. Now this warning message will appear, and that will tell you about the layers which cannot be deleted. So in this case layer 0 and def points cannot be deleted, and we were trying to delete layer 0, that's why it was not deleted. We also cannot delete the current layer. So currently active layer is layer 0. Obviously if some other layer would have been active and if you try to delete that, that will also not be deleted. Also if you have layers containing object, that won't be deleted, and also xref dependent layers. We'll learn about xrefs also later on in upcoming modules. So these are the layers that cannot be deleted. So let's close it, and let's now assign different objects from this drawing to these layers. So currently we have the 0 layer active, and with that I'll close it. Now let's say that we want to first assign all of the dimensions on dim layer. For that, select any one of the dimension and then right click and select this option, select similar. So that will select all of the dimensions which are present in this drawing. Now go to this drop down and select the dim layer, and all of these objects are now present on dim layer. So let's press escape key, and if you want to check that, simply click on any of these dimensions. And when you click that, you'll notice that here we have this dim layer visible. And if you uncheck, if you press escape key, you'll see the 0 layer, which is currently active. Now in a similar way, we will assign hatch layer. So I'll select this hatch pattern and I'll go to the home tab and I'll assign it to the hatch layer. Also, we have one more hatch pattern here. So let's select it also. And let's again change this to hatch. Okay. Now we have some text here. So let's select the text, then right click, select this option, select similar. So that will select all of the text in this drawing. And once again, go to the drop down, select text. So now we have assigned some of the objects on different layers. So that was the introduction of layer. In the next video, I will tell you about changing properties of these layers. So let's have a look at the layer properties manager palette. So when you click on this layer properties icon, this layer properties manager palette will open up. Now this is just like any other palette in AutoCAD. You can resize it, you can dock it, you can hide it, and if you move it to this side, it will dock it automatically. In order to release it, simply click on this and bring it outside. Now this layer properties manager has a list of all the layers and its related properties. The layer which is currently active will be shown with this green check mark, and you can change the status of currently active layer by selecting any other layer and clicking on this icon. So that will set current that layer. So in this case we have this dim layer which is now active and which is now set as the current layer. So by simply setting any layer as the current layer, you are essentially telling AutoCAD to make any new geometries on that layer. So in this case I have set dim layer as the current layer. So I'll now hide this palette and now I'll make a new drawing. And this drawing will be made on dim layer. So when you click on this object, you'll notice that we have this dim here. That indicates that the current layer for this object is dim. Even when you uncheck it, you'll notice that dim layer is active. But if you select any other object, for example this object, the layer changes to 0, which was the active layer for this object. Similarly, if you select this text, it will change to the respective layer, which is text. So in order to make any of these layers active, you can activate that layer from this layer properties manager simply by selecting that layer and clicking on this set current option, or you can also make it active layer from this drop down menu. So click on this drop down and change it to something else. For example, this layer 0. Now we have 0 layer as active layer. Now I'll make a new geometry and it will be made on layer 0. When you click on it, layer 0 will be shown here. So let's now erase both of these geometries and let's expand this layer properties manager. So you can change multiple properties of a layer. We'll start with the color. In this case, here we have this color column and all of these layers have a single color, which is white, and that's the color which we see here. Now let's say that we want to change colors of some of these layers. I'll start with the dim layer. So we have this dim layer. Let's select this color box and this will open this select color window. Now from this window you can select any of these colors, and if this window is not sufficient, you can select the colors from this true color. That will give you more options to select the color, or you can use color books. For this case I'll select index colors and I'll select this green color and now click on OK. So the layer has been assigned green color and all the objects on this dim layer are now taking that property. So you can directly see it in the drawing area. Also, we have all of these dimensions now colored in green. Let's move to the hatch layer and we'll change its color to cyan and click OK. Similarly, we can change the color for text layer. You can change it to red if you want, or any other color. And we have this C line layer also. Let's select it and let's change its color to magenta and click on OK. So in this way you can apply different colors to different layers, and that will help you in identifying these different objects in the drawing area. Now we have some properties here like on, off, freeze, thaw, and lock, unlock. Now we'll have a look at that, but before that I'll simply move this palette over here and I'll move this drawing area just towards right. Let's decrease the size of this palette also. Now we have this complete drawing in view. So we have this on and off option, and using this on off option you can hide some of the objects from your drawing area. For example, here we have this dimension layer. Now if you click on this light bulb icon, it will turn off this current layer and all of the objects in that layer will hide from your drawing area. To bring it back, simply click on this bulb icon again and it's back in the drawing area. Similarly, you can freeze any of these layers. So here we have an option of freezing the layers. So when you click on this freeze icon, it will freeze it, and you can click on it again to thaw it or bring it back. So visibly, on and off and freeze, thaw have same effect on the drawings, but when you freeze your drawing, not only the objects become invisible from the drawing area, but they also become invisible from the background processing of your PC. So when you freeze any of these layers, the objects on that layer will not be counted for regeneration. So AutoCAD will regenerate or refresh your drawings without considering those objects. So that will improve the performance of your software visibly, and this is especially helpful for large drawings. So in large drawings, you can freeze the layers which are not required to improve the performance of your drawing and of your software as a whole. So for small drawings, on and off and freeze thaw will have no visible effect apart from hiding the objects. Now let's have a look at this lock and unlock. So using this lock layer, you can simply lock the objects and it will become uneditable. So you won't be able to modify objects on that layer. Also, when you lock any of the layers, the objects on that layer will dim in color, and you can see that the transparency has been increased here. Now we have the 50% transparency, and this small lock icon will also appear along the cursor. The transparency of this locked layer can be controlled by this transparency slider. So you can bring this slider here to restore the complete transparency, or you can move it here if you want to increase the transparency, just like this. So I'll change its transparency back to 50%, and I'll also unlock this layer. So we not only have these many options, we also have lots of other options in this palette. So let's expand this palette. And now we have this line type. So obviously you can change the line type also, but for line type, I'll select this C line layer. Now in this C line layer, we have this continuous line type. Let's click here and let's select this center line type instead. Now, if not many line types are loaded here in the drawing, you can simply click on this load and you can load more line types like ISO dash, and you can use it. So let's use this center line type for this case, and I'll click on OK. And when you look into drawing area, you'll notice that the line type of the object on that layer will change. Similarly, you can change the line weight. So I'll change the line weight to 0.3. Click on OK. And here we have a visible result. And obviously you can change the transparency. So the value of transparency will range from 0 to 90, and you can change it to any value which you want. So I'll select 70 and click on OK. And here we have it. The transparency has been reduced. In case of line weight and transparency, you need to ensure that this line weight display and this transparency display status bar options are active in order to see its effect. So if you turn off this line weight display, obviously the line weight will not be visible. Similarly, if you turn off this transparency option, the transparency will not be visible. So make sure that these options are active. There is also an option of this plot. Now, when you turn off the plot for any of these layers, the objects will not be plotted. For example, I'll turn off the plot for this dim layer, which contains this green object or the dimensions. So let's zoom out and let's decrease the size of this palette. Now all of these dimensions will not appear when you plot your drawing. Whether you print it on a paper or you take the output on a PDF file, it will not appear. To make it visible, you need to ensure that the plot is on. The def points layer will always have this plot turned off by default, and you cannot change this value. So let's decrease the size of this palette, and that was all about the Layer Properties Manager palette. In this video, I will tell you about Layer States Manager and Layer Walk tools. So let's start with the Layer States Manager. So in this case, we have this drawing, and most of the objects in this drawing are assigned on different layers. For example, the dim layer for the dimensions and the text layer for the text, also hatch layer for these hatches. We also have a C line or the construction line layer for these construction lines. Now there may be situations when we want different states of layer in which the behavior of layer are quite different, and we may need to preserve that state. To make this clear, I'll make a couple of layer states. So expand this layers panel and click on this push pin. So that will keep this layers panel always open. Now here we have this layer states manager drop down. Now click on this drop down and you'll see this new layer state and also the manage layer states option. So select this new layer state first and give it a name. So I'll name it as all active. So that's simply the name of current state of layer. I'll click on OK, and now this state of layer is saved, in which all the layers are on, all the layers are not frozen, they are unlocked, and they have these conditions of these colors and all the other settings. So that's simply a layer state which is now saved as all active. Now let's make some changes in this state. So I'll click on this drop down and I'll turn off some of the layers. So I'll turn off the dim layer, and I'll also turn off this hatch layer. Now we have dim and hatch off, and let's save it as a new state. So I'll click on this drop down and I'll click on new layer state. So let's type dim dash hatch off. Okay, so these two are off. Now click on OK. So we have this second layer state. Now let's go to this drop down and once again change the layer state. So I'll turn both of these on, and this time I'll simply lock the dim layer, and I'll also lock the construction line layer. Now let's save this state. So go to this layer states, new layer state, and let's type lock as the name. So that's all. Now click on OK. So we have these three layer states which are saved here: all active, dim, hatch, and lock. And when I move my cursor over these layer states, you will be able to see a preview of what the condition of layers were when they were saved in these states. So in all active, all of the layers are active, and if you want to see this layer state, simply click on it and all of the layers will become active. Now if you want to see the second layer state in which dim and hatch layers were off, simply select it, and now we have dim and hatch layer off. So simply you can toggle between different layer states using this layer states drop down. If you want to manage more about these layer states, click on this manage layer states, and now we have more options. For example, if you want to change the name of any of these layer states, simply select that and click on rename. So I'll rename it as dim lock and click anywhere to change the name. So this has been changed. Now if you want to export this, you can also export it, and you can also import them. The layer states file are saved with LAS extension, so you can obviously use them. So let's now close this and let's get back to the all active layer state. Now we also have another tool which is lay walk, which is helpful in managing a long list of layers. So the lay walk tool can be found here. So here we have this lay walk. You can also use its command equivalent lay walk. So let's select this lay walk tool, but before selecting that, I'll just move my drawing towards left and now click on this lay walk. So this will open this layer walk window. Now in this window, you'll notice that all of these layers are present and they are all active, as you can see here with the blue selection, but now only the text layer has been active. So using this lay walk, you can make a selection of the layer. So I'll make all of them active first, and now all of these layers are visible. Now let's say that you want to see a couple of layers. For that, you can selectively click on those layers. For example, we want to see only the dim layer, so click on the dim, and only the objects which are on dim layer will be visible and rest of them will become invisible. Similarly, you can click on any other layer and only the object of that layer will be visible. If you want to select multiple layers, you can press and hold Control key and click on multiple objects, and the objects of that layer will be visible. In a large drawing, it becomes very difficult to find out the exact layer of an object. So for those cases, you can also select this option. So at first, let's select all of these objects. So all of these layers, now they're active. Now let's select this pick box and now select the objects. So we have selected the dimension, and let's select the C line object and now press enter. So now only these two objects will remain visible, and you will be easily able to identify the layers which are currently active using this lay walk. Now if you don't want to keep this state, then you can select this restore on exit and close it, and then all the layers will return back to their original condition. But if you want to keep that state, then select the lay walk and select the layers here, and now uncheck this restore on exit option, and now this condition or this state will be retained. So let's click on continue when this warning message appears, and here we have it. The condition has been retained here. So let's once again turn on all of these inactive layers, and let's click on this push pin to release the layers panel. And that was all about layer states and layer walk tool of AutoCAD. In this video, I will tell you about layer filters, and layer filters are very important tools for large drawings. So when the drawing generally becomes very large, it starts to accumulate lots of layers, and the layers can even range to hundreds or thousands of layers. So managing that many layers becomes a very difficult task, and with the help of layer filters you can really make that task easy. So in order to use layer filters, click on this layer properties to bring this layer properties manager, and now here we have lots of layers in this drawing. As you can see here, although the number of layers is not in hundreds, but still we have a fairly large number of layers. Now in this case, let's say that we want to classify these layers depending upon their characteristics or depending upon their properties. For example, the color, the name, and also the states like on, off, freeze, lock, and also the plot. So these conditions can be used to create different filters, and we can then select the objects based upon their filters. So in the first situation, let's create a layer filter which contains all the red layers. So for that, I'll click on this new property filter icon, and this layer filter properties window will pop up. Now let's name it. So I'll name it as red filter. And now we are selecting the color filter. Red is a color, so I'll simply go to this color column. So now click on this color column and you'll see this box. Now click on this box and select the color which you want to include in your filter and click on OK. Now the color has been included and we have all the layers with a red color. Now they are sorted out. Let's click on OK, and here we have a new red filter. If you want to go to the complete list of layers, simply click on this all used layers and we have the complete list. Now let's change the states of these layers. Let's turn off some of these layers, and I'll also ensure that the layers which are off, among those, some of them should have their plot turned off. So I'll turn it off. I'll turn off plot for many more layers. Now once again, let's go to this layer filter and let's name it as off no plot, and we want to create a filter with all the layers which are off and also with all the layers for which plotting is turned off. So I'll first go to this on and off option, and now I'll select this off. So now we have all the layers. Now we also need to select the second condition, which is plot. So go to plot and select no plot. So now we have these many layers which fulfill both the criterias. So all these layers are off and also the plot for these layers is off, and click on OK. So we have this second filter. In a similar way, you can use as many criterias as possible to create different kind of layer property filters. You can not only create the layer property filter based upon their simple properties, but you can also create them using their names. So I'll click on this all unused layers, and now let's have a look at the names of these layers. So the name of these layers are quite random. Let's say that we want to make a layer property filter that start with C. For that, I'll again click on this property filter and I'll give it a name. So I'll type C as the name, and now click on this name field, and now simply type C. So that will make a filter containing all the layers which start with C letter, and let's click on OK. So that's quite easy. But what if we want to create a filter which contains a set of alphabets somewhere in between the complete layer name? For example, we want all the layers in which the third letter is N. For that, I'll once again go to the property filter and I'll name it as N, and now click on the name, and now you need to specify this property using wildcards. So we want third place to be occupied with N, and all the remaining spaces can be occupied by any other letter. So for that, I'll select this question mark. So that will indicate that the first letter could be anything, the second letter could be anything, but the third letter should be N. And now the star or this asterisk mark after n indicates that rest of the letters could be anything. So in this case, you can simply see that the third letter is n in all of these layers. And we have our new layer property filter. So in this way, using different kind of wildcards, you can make a classification of different layers depending upon their properties. And you can not only create this layer property filter, you can even directly use it here in the layer search. Now, for example, if you want to search for any layer in which third letter is B, simply type question mark B. And here we have it. The layer with third letter as B will be visible with all of its properties. So in this way, you can use this layer search as well. So that's the layer property filter. We also have a group filter, and using the group filter, you can add the layers manually that may or may not have any properties in common. So for creating the group filter, click on this new group filter icon and give it a name. So I'll name it as new group. Let's press enter. Now once again, I'll double click on all unused layers, and now you simply need to drag and drop all the layers which you want to add in this filter. So I'll select this AM0, add it in this new group, and I'll randomly select some of the layers and I'll add it in this new group. Okay, now double click on this and we have all the layers which we have added, and these may or may not have some properties in common because we have manually added them here. Now there is also an option of inverting the filter. For example, let's just select this red filter, and obviously in this red filter you'll find all the layers containing red as its color. Now if you want to invert the filter, simply click on this invert filter icon and you'll have a list with all the layers except the layers containing red color. In a similar way, you can invert the filter for all of these properties, for example for N, C, or all of these other filters. So that was all about creating layer property and group filters in AutoCAD. In this video, I will tell you about lay merge, lay del, and copy to layer commands of AutoCAD. So I'll start with the lay merge command, and using lay merge command, you can merge two or more layers into a single layer, and that will also move all of the objects of the source layer on the destination layer. So to make it clear, I'll start the lay merge tool. So expand the layers panel and select this icon. So that is the lay merge icon. You can also use its command equivalent laymrg. So let's click on it, and now click on the source object, the object which you want to move. So in this case, I'll select this letter, and that will select all of the objects which are on this particular layer, and now press enter. Now click on any object of the destination layer. So I'll select this object, the purple one, and click on it, and now you'll notice that the color of this object changes and all the remaining properties of this object will also change, and it will inherit the property from this target layer. So if you want to commit to these changes, simply select yes from the command line, and we don't have red layer anymore. So you can click on this drop down and you'll notice that we don't have that red layer which was named as text, and all the objects of that layer are moved to this new C line layer. To undo the change, simply press Ctrl Z, and we have this here, the text layer, which is here. Now let's look at the lay del command. So using the lay del command, you can simply delete some of the layers and also its objects. So it's not always recommended to use this lay del command, but if required, you can use this command to forcefully delete the layers containing objects. So if you open this layer properties manager and if you try to delete any of the layer that contains object, for example, here we have this text layer, and as you know that the text layer has some objects. So let's decrease the size of this layer properties manager and I'll move it here. Now we have this text layer and all of these red objects are on this text layer. Now if you try to delete it using this layer properties manager, you won't be able to do that because the layer contains object. That's this third criteria. Now if you want to forcefully delete it, then simply go to this layers panel, expand it, select this lay del tool, and now select any one of the object on that layer. And here we have it. All the objects from that layer are gone, and also the layer will be purged. So if you want to commit to this change, simply press enter and select yes from the command line. And let's go to this drop down, and we don't have that text layer, and also all the objects from here are gone. As I told you that there are some layers which are quite stubborn, for example def points that cannot be deleted, but using this lay del tool you can also delete this def point layer. Although it is not recommended, this is quite an important layer which is automatically created, and it stores all the definition points of the dimensions. So I recommend you not to delete these layers, but still if you want to delete some of the layers which are quite stubborn and you don't want them, then you can use lay del command. So I'll once again press Ctrl Z to bring that layer back. Now let's have a look at copy to layer tool. So if you want to copy any one of the object from one layer to different layer, then you can use this copy to layer tool. So for that I'll expand this layers panel and select this copy to layer. Now click on the object that you want to copy. In this case I'll select both of these arrows. So I'll select this arrow and I'll also select this arrow. We want to copy this arrow, and now press enter. Now specify the destination layer or the layer on which you want to put these arrows. So I'll select this C line layer object. Now it will prompt you to specify the base point. So you can specify the base point and move these objects somewhere else, and if you want to place it directly overlapping the first object, you can simply press enter and we will have overlapping objects. So in this case you may not find that overlapping object, but when you move your cursor you will see this menu which indicates that we now have two objects. So you can select the original one and you can erase it. Now you can see that we have an overlapping object. Let's select this one also and I'll erase it here. Similarly, I'll repeat the process from this side. So I'll select the polyline, I'll erase it, and I'll select this polyline and I'll erase it. Now here we have it. So the objects are now moved to a new layer and they're also copied. Now if you don't want to do it in this way, if you want to make a copy of that, so you can do that also. So once again I'll select this copy to layer option and I'll select both of these objects and press enter. Now select the destination layer and select the base point. In this case I'll select this point as the base point, and now I'll specify another point somewhere over here, and here we have it. So now the copy of these layers will be made at the point which we have specified, and obviously these objects are on the new layer which we have assigned. So you can use this tool to create new copies of the object on different layer. So this was all about lay merge, lay del and copy to layer tools of AutoCAD. In this video, I will tell you about some of the tools which are available on the layers panel for quick access. So when you go to the layers panel, you'll find that we have some tools here, and you can use these tools to ease your task, and they are quite shortcuts which can be used directly without using the layer properties manager. So let's start with the first tool, which is on and off. So using this layer off, you can select the layers which you want to turn off. So select that tool and click on any object of a particular layer, and all of the objects of that layer will be turned off. Simply you can click on this text and all of the text objects are now off. Now press enter to exit this command. In order to bring it back, simply select turn all layers on or lay on tool here, and all the layers will be brought back to the drawing. If you want to isolate some of the layers selectively, then you can select the second option. So using this second tool, you can select objects, and all of the objects except your selection will be hidden. So in this case, I'll select this object and all of the objects of this layer, and also let's select this dimension. So all of the objects of layer 0 and the dimension will remain, and rest of the objects will be hidden. So let's press enter, and here we have it. So you only have the dimension and all the objects of layer 0, and rest of the objects are hidden. So you can use these tools for accessing some of the layer properties quickly and efficiently. Now if you want to bring all the objects back in the drawing area, simply click this icon, the unisolate icon, and here we have it. Similarly, you can freeze layers selectively. So select this freeze option, click on the object which you want to freeze, and the layer has been frozen. You can select layer 0 also, or any other layer to freeze them. press enter, and now to bring them back, simply click on this thaw all layers option, and they're brought back to the drawing area. Similarly, we have this lock layer. Select this tool, click on the layer objects which you want to lock, and you need to press enter again if you want to lock more layers. So here we have it. To bring them back, you need to selectively select the tool and then click on the objects. So I'll select this object, and all of the objects of this layer are brought back. So I'll repeat this command and I'll click on this object, and again it's also unlocked. So these were some quick access tools. We also have a different tool here, which is make layer current. So using this tool, you can make any of the layer current directly by selecting the object. For example, if you have a long list of layer, it becomes really difficult to find that layer in this layer drop down list. So let's say that we want to activate a particular layer simply by selecting the object from that layer. For that, we can select this option. So click on this make current and click on any of the object. For example, in this case, I'll click on this dimension, and as soon as I do that, the dimension layer will become the current layer. You can select it again, click on any other layer, for example text, and the text becomes current layer. Let's return back to layer 0 as the current layer. Now let's have a look at this last tool, which is this match layer tool. So using this tool, you can match the properties of one object on the destination layer. For example, in this case, we have this plant text. Let's say that we want to apply the properties of this layer on this plant text. For that, select it. Now select the text, press enter, and now select the destination layer. And here we have it. The properties of this destination layer are applied here. Similarly, you can do that for these arrows. So I'll select this lay match option, and I'll select all of these arrows. I'll select both of these arrows. Now press enter and select the destination layer. And here we have it. The properties of destination layer are applied here. You can repeat this process for these objects also. So once again, I'll select this lay match option, select all of these objects, press enter, and now apply it to this layer. And here we have it. So the properties of this layer are applied here. So not only the color, but also the line type, line weight, and all the other properties will also be applied on these layers. So this was all about some of the tools which are available on the layers panel. And these tools are really helpful in accessing the properties of layer properties manager without even opening that layer property manager or without even using the layer drop down menu. In this video, I will tell you about hide and isolate options of AutoCAD. So here we have the simple drawing. Now, let's say that we want to work on certain parts of the drawing, and for that we need less crowded drawing. So in that case, you can hide some of these objects from your drawing area, and you can work on the parts which you require, and later on you can restore the visibility of those hidden parts. So obviously you can do that using layers, but that's a selective process which involves turning on and off certain layers. But if you don't want to involve layers, you can directly use the hide and isolate options to turn visibility of certain objects on and off. So I'll explain it using this drawing. So in this case, let's say that we want to hide all of these dimensions and also some of the extra annotations which are present in this drawing. So for that, I'll select the dimension first and then right click and select this option, select similar. So that will select all of these dimensions. Now I'll click on this ground level text, then right click, select the same option. It will select all the text, and I'll also select these objects from our drawing area. Now these are the objects that I want to hide. Now in order to hide them, simply right click anywhere, select this isolate option, and now select hide objects. Now the objects are hidden. Obviously the objects are not deleted. You can restore them back whenever required when the editing is done. So in this case, let's say that we want to add a new geometry here. So I'll go to the circle tool and I'll add a new circle here. Now we want to bring back all the objects. So for that, once again, right click anywhere, go to the isolate option and select this option, end object isolation. And we have all the objects back in drawing area. Now, if you want to work on certain objects and you want to retain them instead of hiding them, and you want to hide all of the other objects from your drawing area, you can do that as well. So in this case, let's say that we only want to work with this circle and with this line. Now rest of the objects we don't want here, we want to hide them. So select the objects that you want to retain, then right click, go to isolate and select isolate objects. So that will help you in retaining those objects, and rest of the objects will be hidden. Now let's erase the circle, and now we'll bring back all the objects. So simply right click, select the isolate option and select end object isolation, and all of these objects are back in the drawing area. Now you can do the same thing using the hide and isolate status bar option. So here we have this hide and isolate option. So you can click on this hide isolate option and select hide or isolate tool. But before using that, you need to make a selection. For example, let's say that we want to hide all of these dimensions. So I'll select the dimension, right click, and I'll select this option, select similar. That will select all the dimensions. Now go to this option, the isolate objects, and select hide objects, and they are now hidden. In order to bring it back, you can again go to the same status bar option and select this end object isolation. So click on it and the objects are back in the drawing area. So you can use any of these methods, either the right contextual menu or the status bar icon. That depends completely on your preference. So this was all about the hide and isolate options of AutoCAD. Okay, so here is your question related to this module. Here you need to create a circle with radius 5 unit, a square with side 5 unit length, and a triangle with edge length of 5 unit. Now make 3 corresponding layers, 3 layers with name radius, 3 layers with name circle, square, and triangle, and place these objects on the respective layers. Now assign a red color and ISO dash line type to layer which contains circle, and a line weight of 0.5 to the layer which contain square and triangle. So let's start with the geometries first. So I'll go to circle, click at a point and make a circle with 5 unit radius. There we have it. Now let's zoom out. Okay, let's go to rectangle, click at a point and make a rectangle with length 5 and a width of 5. So that will make a square. And now the third geometry, which will make with polygon. So select polygon. Now in number of sides, enter 3 and press enter. Now specify center, which should be anywhere. Now we need to specify the edge length. So click on this edge option and click at any point here and specify the edge length as 5 unit and press enter. So there we have it, all the 3 geometries. Now we need to make corresponding layers. For that, I'll go to Layer Properties Manager. Click on New and give it a name. So let's name it as Circle. Make second layer, name it as Square, and make third layer, name it as Triangle. Now we need to put these objects on the respective layer. For that, I'll close this Layer Properties Manager, select the circle, click on this drop down and select Circle. Let's press Escape. Now select the square, click on drop down and select square, and once again press escape. Now select the triangle, click on the drop down, select triangle and press escape. So now we have made the objects and we have assigned them on different layers. Now we need to change their properties, but using the Layer Properties Manager. So in the first case, we need to assign red color and ISO dash line type to layer containing circle. So go to Layer Properties Manager again, go to this circle layer and assign red color. So I'll click on color box, select red, click on OK. Now scroll it a little bit here. Here we have the line type, click on it, and we don't have any line type here. So I'll click on load and let's load ISO dash, which is here. Click on OK, select ISO dash, click on OK, and there we have it, ACAD ISO dash. That's loaded here. Now you can collapse this to see the effect, and there we have it. Let's now bring it back. Now I'll change the second and third properties, which are related to square and triangle layer. Now in this case, we need to change the line weight to 0.5 for both of these layers. So here we have the line weight, click on it, change it to 0.5 and change it to 0.5 for this case. And there we have it. Now the properties are assigned. Let's get back to the drawing and let's see the effect. Now here in this case, we have some problems. The scale of this line here in the case of circle is very large that we need to change. So I'll type LT scale, that's for line type scale, and the scale factor is set to 1. Let's change it to 0.25 and press enter, and you can see that it will change the scale. In this case, we are not changing the scale from the property panel, but we are changing it using LT scale command. So once again, I'll type LT scale and I'll change it to 0.1. And that looks quite appropriate. So you can use this also to change the line type scale of all of the geometries which are present here in the drawing area. Now we need to ensure that the line weight is visible for both of these objects. So for that, we simply need to turn on this line weight display, and there we have it. It's now visible. So here we have the final drawing as per the required layer assignments.